Welcome to another episode of the Svarim Chatter podcast. I'm Nachi Weinstein. This episode is sponsored by the Tehillim Unveiled podcast. Hanukkah is here, and many of us try to fit in a bit of learning for Hanukkah, but then it hits you. It's also Parshas Miketz. Suddenly, there are two topics you want to learn and almost no time for either. What if you could cover both at once and walk away with a genuinely insightful understanding of each and finally understanding a mizmor you say every day? And what if you could do it all effortlessly through a podcast? That's exactly what you get in the Hanukkah episode of Tehillim Unveiled, the podcast that uncovers the meaning behind the Tehillim we say every day. This Hanukkah, we explore Tehillim 30, Mizmor Shir Chanukas Habayis, and show how one mizmor reveals a deep, coherent connection between Hanukkah, Miketz, and your morning davening, all wrapped up in one incredibly relevant message. Whether you're looking for something to learn by the candles or to squeeze in on your commute, this episode gives you real insight and helps the whole week come together. You can find a link to the Hanukkah special of Tehillim Unveiled in the podcast in the show notes, or search for Tehillim Unveiled wherever you get your podcasts. To sponsor an episode of the podcast or to support the podcast, please email me, svarimchatter@gmail.com, where you can find a link and information in the show notes below. You can also find a link to subscribe to the Svarim Chatter WhatsApp community, where I post new books, new Svarim, book deals, and more. You can also find a link to subscribe to the Svarim Chatter status. And finally, if you can please subscribe to the podcast generally, wherever it is that you listen, 24/6, Apple, Spotify, and so on. And if you can please rate the podcast if you use Apple. And with that, wishing everyone a happy Freilich and Lichtige Hanukkah. Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of the Svarim Chatter podcast. On this episode of the podcast, I'm going to be joined by Rabbi Eliya, who is the founder and editor-in-chief of Mishnayos, Mishnayos, and we'll discuss what that is, rather not Mishnayos, rather the Mishnayos Mishnayos, and we'll discuss Mishnayos generally and also specifically the brand new project that's being published now, Mishnat Eyal of Mishnayos. This episode of the podcast is sponsored anonymously, L'zecher Nishmas Eyal Meir ben Shemaya, in commemoration of his second yahrzeit, which is Erev Chanukah, Chof Dal Kislev, which is when this Mishnat Eyal is being published. I also want to dedicate this episode to Nishmas, my father-in-law, Rotzadik Menachem ben Chaim Yosef, who his yahrzeit is Yud Kislev today, which is the day that we're recording this. Thank you, Rabbi, for joining me.
Shalom.
Let's start off. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your background.
I was born, my body was born in Chicago and raised there. Hillel Torah, ICJA, the class of 1980. And I put off my acceptance to MIT for a year to go to Israel to learn for a year. And I went to BMT. And there I ended up getting into learning Mishnayot, which I started with a set of Kahati. And I liked it, and I came back. I wanted to stay another year, and I sent a letter to Mr. Richardson asking him for another year of hiatus. And he said, we can't give you another year. You'll have to apply again. But if you listen to me, my advice is, I didn't ask for advice. He said, if you have something important to do, do it, and college will take care of itself. So in the end, I decided to stay in Israel and not to go to MIT. My mother eventually forgave me at the age of 90. We're very close, everything, but it's still, there's still people in Chicago who still remember that. So it was seen to be very crazy. I'm not the only one that did things like that. And there's a twist to the story at the end. So maybe you'll get to hear it. It's a very interesting twist. I stayed, Rav Moshe Horowitz, my Rosh Hashiva Alav Shalom. He offered me a chavrusa. He was a Talmud of the Rav and the Rav Kotler, Rav Lifshitz. He offered me a chavrusa to stay in BMT and not go to somewhere else that I was accepted. I stayed. And then I started learning Bekias. I'd always been interested in not just learning, but how to learn. I'm talking back when I was a senior, before that even. And I ended up learning Bekias, and there's a YU graduate, Rav Yohanes and Berger. He got me into it, and he was older, more knowledgeable, and he taught me and another of my colleagues, and we learned like 2 daf a day. And it was so enchanting to me that I ended up leaving my shir iyun to learn Shas. And then we were looking for a way to do it better. We heard about these tapes made by Rav Shabtai Sabato. So one of his friends, Rav Bava, taught in BMT, so we got tapes, and I learned Bava Kama. It was like amazing. And so I ended up meeting Rav Sabato, and he was like, we just make these tapes for the students that are learning. I said, no, you can really learn with this. And at that time, there was no one learning. It wasn't like Shas tapes. He was the first one with a whole Shas on audio. And I said, no, it's good. And they decided then to publish it as the Talmud HaMuklat, which is sold, millions of cassettes and now discs. and now they have a free app. So I ended up learning Shas and ended up having a group of Americans also, and then his group of Israelis joined with a group of Americans in BMT, which is also history, and finished the Shas there. I finished the Shas, and then we started learning Rabbanut, and then on the side I was always learning Mishnayos and Mishnayot, and I started learning Baal Peh and doing Chazaras, a lot of Chazaras because of Rav Sabato's influence also on me. So while we were learning, I was learning Smicha, I would be taking off time to go learn Mishnayos Baal Peh. And I ended up teaching all of Shas, most of Shas, and then I decided how can I present this to people in a way that they will get it. And I always loved the big picture. I made these charts that showed how the different topics of the Mishnayos were connected together. And so I then decided with the charts to print the Mishnah Sedura in the way that was like a song, that was like the Shinun. And it was very heavily influenced by the Shinun about Peh and the Chazaras, because Mishnah Sedura is created in a way which approximates in a visual form what the audio form would be. When we speak, we don't speak like the way the Gemara, the way the Mishnah, Vilna Mishnah looks like. We don't talk like that. We have a parashiot like in the Torah, where we stop. We have cadence. We emphasize. And this really was my dream to put this out. And then I finally had a mission. I could tell people, learn with this. So my actual Gears the Inkusa wasn't in that, but I ended up, learning a lot with it and many Talmidim. So back to Rav Sabato, I ended up giving the idea. We didn't finish Micha. I said, why don't we start a high school? We started a high school, and actually then I put up the Mishnah Sedura in the first, second year. And since then, I've been there in Mitzvah Rikho in a high school and also helped them start the Yeshiva Gvuha that's there. So about over 400 people on the campus, and I teach both in the high school and the Yeshiva Gvuha there. And many of the students, finish Shas Mishnah, Chazer. There are a few, not everybody's a Baki in Shas Mishnah, but there are good numbers of those. I have Talmidim that have Chazered more than 100 times Shas Mishnah and all over Israel and the world. So that's what happened.
Amazing. Now, Mishnah Stura. Let's talk about Mishnah Stura. You mentioned some of it there and how it is like a song. You clarify what that means. I mean, this is an audio podcast, not a visual, but we can explain kind of what that means, how it goes down. Like you're saying, almost like think of like a song. But let's talk about Mishnah Stura, why you decided to found it, what it was like founding it, publishing it, how groundbreaking it was when it was printed. Let's talk about Mishnah Stura for those that are familiar and for those that are not familiar with Mishnah Stura.
So the main thing to realize is that it came from an inner need from myself. I needed to see things in a global way. Call it right brain. I remember a time I was talking to one of the people in the yeshiva, and he had Xerox for me. I asked him, it was the secretary, to Xerox all of the Mishnah from a different hotzah, from Livorno, which had a lot of Mishnah on the page, and tape them together so that in one piece of paper, if you remember the how the computer paper used to be in this roll of paper that you come out, I could see on the wall all of Masechet Yoma, and I used these highlighters to show Big Day Lovin, Big Day Zav, the Par, the Sa'ir, what was going on in the Masechet. And I said to him, don't you see? He says, what? I said, you can see the whole Masechet. You can see the whole Masechet. So this is something inside of me. I have this way. Some people like charts. Some people don't like charts. Some people like maps. Some people don't like maps. And it's called, it's a familiar way of saying is right brain and left brain. So in terms of seeing, I wanted to see the big picture. And so in Mishnah Sedura, first of all, it's a big page. There's a lot to see in one fell swoop. You can see a parak on one page or two pages. There's a few prakim. And also because of the shinun. The shinun is the Mishnah is supposed to be heard. It happens to be something very important in Judaism. So we are instructed to have our children or our Talmidim, who are dear to us like children, familiarize themselves with the sound of the Torah, not just the meaning of the Torah. And we believe, as religious Jews, that the Torah should be chtav, and at a certain level, the Torah should be Baal Peh, and at a certain level, the Rishonim and the Achronim, every word is precious. So we have to hear how they said it. And the Gemara, obviously, many times takes a point with why was it said this way, not the other way. So when we repeat it, we are doing the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. And no other sefer exists for Torah Sheba'al Peh that is created in a way that helps you do chinun. I've had people complain to me, I'm saying it's sort of as a joke, you've ruined my life. Now I learned Zohar, I have to split it up into these lines just like you did. There are other people that have followed in my footsteps, have taken some of them Talmidim, other people who have taken inspiration from me and done things to other things. There are a couple of people that have done Gemaras. There are people that have done Midrash Halacha. There's even someone who get back to the Tanakh and start making the Tanakh that way, even though Tanakh has Tami. So what we have, speaking of Tanakh, we have the Ta'amei Mikra here with Mishnah. We have a way of saying the Mishnah in a way which is not just audio, but is also visually pleasing. And I split the lines, call it, let's say, hitting enter after a phrase to help people know what to say, which Rav Kletskin, who's the founder of the Zichat Torah Moshe, he says it's 3 to 4 times better in a class using that than using the regular, whatever they call regular. I call it not regular, Mishnayos. Although when I did start Mishnah Sedura, I remember one of the first weeks I had it, and I was looking up from Ezras Nashim down into Boston. I lived in Har Nof, and there was two young men in Ben Ezman. It was Nissan, and they're clearing off the Besfarim, and one picks up the book, the clear up the Besfarim. He looks at his friend, and I saw it from upstairs, and they shrug. I'm like, is that Mishnayos? So it's come a long way. I've come a long way to a point where people didn't understand what it would be. Someone said, maybe you'll sell 1,000 in 2 years. It ended up selling 1,000 in 1 year, and then it kept going along. I printed 2 big volumes. Eventually, after a while, because of popular demand, I printed 3 middle-sized volumes, and then I printed smaller pocket-sized volumes. And the reason I did big volumes in the beginning, and I still espouse that, is because you don't become a Talmid Chacham on the bus. You don't become a master of the Mishnah because you're learning it for someone's yard site. Oh, you're learning Mishnah. What happened? Okay. So no, you have to dedicate yourself hours a day, probably, in order to do that. And as I teach, and it's a general derech in our yeshiva, but it's something that I do specifically is to annotate your Mishnah with the notes that you need in order to understand it. So it's come from a time where no one knew what to do with the book, and it was just something in my heart that I had to get out, to a point where we'll talk about Mishnat Eyal, a Mishnah which was learned. It was a pocket Mishnah, the size of your palm, and a very brilliant young man, Eyal Meir Berkowitz, who got about an 800 in his psychometry. So that's like a perfect score on the SAT. He annotated with copious notes and illustrations. Now, he did this because of the sheet of Mishnah Sedura, and because that's what he wanted to do. He aspired to get to 18 prakim per day with chazara and with full knowledge. And he went to the army, to top level units with the Mishnayos. And then he went to learn medicine. And he always chazering. He was a very calm guy, so people didn't always know what he was doing, but he was always learning. And in the yeshiva, which I did not visit personally in his lifetime, and a young man which I never met in his lifetime, he ended up doing my shita as one of the best people I've ever seen and heard their work. And so it really is. It takes sometimes 30 some years for an idea to take root, but it is very well dispersed in especially in Eretz Yisrael, but also all over.
So before we get back to Eyal and Mishnat Eyal, which I want to get to much more in depth, and you can talk more about that, let's talk about the Mishnah Sedura. Is that one thing is that you, not only through you, but you really popularized Pirush Kavanaki. If you want to talk about the 18th century Pirush, how that came to be and why that was the Pirush you included, and since then you've included Bartanura. So how did the Kavanaki and then Bartanura come to be included in the Mishnah Sedura?
So Kavanaki, as I said, I wanted to make a book that you could see the maximum amount of Mishnayos at once. However, since it was Torah Shebaal Peh, and I was a little bit, call it, careful, I decided I wouldn't put out the Mishnah without a Perush. The Maisa, I do say you need to learn with another Perush. It could be Kahati, it could be Bartanura, it could be Steinsaltz, it could be, what they call it now, according to Reisman, or whatever, other ones. And I've also put out other Mishnayos, by the way, which I could tell you about. So I wanted this, and it's very helpful. People don't appreciate how helpful the Kavanaki is. It takes care of most of the pshat, and the main thing was to be gores and put in your own notes, so it's fine. But by popular demand, I remember even Rav Nevitzal once that told me, why don't you put in the Bartanura, Rav Zilberman, my Rebbe, Mariva Rabbi, Allah Shalom, whose picture I have him back of me. He said, why don't you put even in small little letters, a different one? He liked the Bartanura also, but he learned with the Kavanaki also. So I put that in, and that really got more popular especially in the Haredi community, because they need to put the Bartanura on the page. And I will explain. As one accomplished and experienced Rebbe said, we don't learn all of the Bartanura, but we need to have it on the page. Just like Rashi, we don't learn all of Rashi. We have to have it on the page. So, okay. And it obviously helps. So I worked a lot on that. But getting back to the format of Mishnah Sedura, and I put it out, I obviously went back to the first printings and did the best work I could with the Kavanaki and also with the Bartanura. Getting back to the layout, I want to say something that I heard from a Rabbi of mine, Yosef Kapach. I learned with him for about a year and a half when I was putting out the Derech HaNesher. Derech HaNesher is a manuscript I got from the Slutskin family. Rav Elazar Moshe Slutskin was close to Rav Kook, and when he was 24, he was told that he was going to go blind. So he learned Mishnayos Baal Peh. In the end, he didn't go blind. He was a big businessman, a big Baal Tzedakah, and he tried to help Rav Kook near Israel, and he would always be Chazer Mishnayos Baal Peh wherever he was in the world. And he had like a manuscript which he made notes on, and I got it from the family, from his grandson, and to put out. And so I connected it with about 10,000 quotes of the Rambam and weaved it in to show how you can use the Rambam, uses the Mishnah to the Psak. Some people say there's a Chiddush in the Lashon of the Rambam, and really it's just that the Rambam used the Lashon of the Mishnah. So I went to Rav Kapach and I learned with him every week, and he enjoyed it very much. But he told me this when I gave him the Mishnah Stura. He said, Kasher HaMori Haya Koreh, when the Mori, the Teimani teacher, Rebbe, was reading, we would understand already half by the way our Rebbe was reading. So, as I said, this is the voice of the Torah. This is a podcast of the Torah. It's not a visual. It's not a visual. The visual helps people, but it's mainly the way it's heard.
So, Mishnah Sedura, as you said, has been published in many different iterations, many different many times. You publish this again and again. So let's talk about Mishnat Eyal and the newest project that will be coming out around now for the second yard site of Eyal Berkowitz, Hashem Yankum Damov. So let's talk about, you could talk about Eyal, who you said you never met, but I'm sure you have what to say about him and his Mishnayos, this manuscript of his that's in the National Library. It's quite fascinating to see, and to see the new layout and what you've done with it in the Mishnah Sedura. I'll link to pictures and a sample in the show notes. I mean, of course, I will link to the Mishnah Sedura website for those interested in purchasing Mishnah Sedura and those interested in checking it out. But just to see a picture, but I'll try to put a picture as well of the Mishnat Eyal so you can kind of see what the Mishnah Sedura team has done. I'll put it on the WhatsApp chat so you can see the Mishnah Sedura. You get the page with the Mishnah Eyal. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about the Mishnat Eyal, how it came to be. Let's talk about Eyal Berkowitz. Let's talk about his Mishnayos and how this whole project, the beginning of the project. So let's walk it back to him. Who was he? You mentioned a little bit about him before. If you could talk a little bit more about him and his love of Mishnayos, really.
Right. So I will start out with the sheet of Mishnah Sedura, and that is, you have to learn the Mishnah. You have to learn all of the Mishnah, and I'm giving you a book which makes it easy for you to learn your Mishnah, Torah Delay, and it's inviting. You have an open canvas as an artist to come and write and have a dialogue with the Mishnah itself. And I always give the advice, Ligros V'Hadar Lizbar. First read it over a few times, and then try to understand it. And you'd be surprised how much you know. It's a little harder in Chutz La'aretz, so people don't know Hebrew, but the Mishnah is close to the Lashon of Ivrit, and people can't understand it. And I always encourage people to put in your notes, put in your own things. So all over Israel, and as I said, also in Chutz La'aretz, there are yeshivot you see with many Mishnahs Duras, and many of them used more or less, and they take this idea of writing in the Mishnah Sidura. In fact, one yeshiva I was there that I came to talk in. The Moshe Yeshiva said, my Mishnah Sidura I also wrote it. I made a sequel with the Daf Yomi in the Mishnah Sidura of my own. So it's been around for a while and people see it. As I said, was a very bright young man. His mother is a school principal from the Abramovitz family, and his father, Shmaya Berkowitz, is also a very intelligent man. He's now, they were shlichim in New Zealand, and then they came back. They went to live in Susia, and he grew up there. And then he went to Bnei David, the yeshiva gvoha in Eli. Eli was one of the first yeshivot that consciously took their students, not just like the yeshiva has there, where they would be, a year and a half in the yeshiva, and a year after the army, or different times. They had a mechina, which would be 1 year or maybe 2 years of learning, and then they would have tzava at a very high level. They pushed and they helped, and the people that came there were ones that wanted to be in the elite units, and they were successful, and they ended up having a yeshiva gvoha also. So there, from my understand, the plan is learn 3 years and then go to the tzava for 3 years. So there's this intensive period of preparing themselves, and I think that they had an effect on Eyal, and he wanted to prepare himself for life and in general for the tzava, and he took his Mishnah. He joined a chabura that was already extant in Eli, that they would learn standing up during the afternoon break around the bima, so they wouldn't fall asleep. And they would each read and explain and then do chazara, and they started doing chazaras a day before, 2 days before, a week before, a month before. And his dream was to get to Chai Prakim. But just mentioning it, one thing that really lit me up was the first time I saw in the Siddur HaGra, the Eitzah and the name of the Gra, to learn Chai Prakim and finish Shas every month. I was like, wow, when can I ever do that? And I would be on Leil Shavuos and read the first Mishnah and last Mishnah in the Tikkun of the Shla. And I would say, when will I get to all of the Mishnayos? So we obviously had that bent. And what happened was they would learn with the Chabura. I think that other times he would sit by himself and go over his notes, because I don't think they had that much time to write so neatly during their Chabura. And he also is a very talented artist. There's books that he illustrated. I mean, from with the Bnei Akiva kids, making pictures on the walls of their sniff, to illustrating a book for a handicapped person who created a book, and he offered to illustrate illustrating a book for his grandmother, Leah Abramovich, about social work that she did. And he also had a very engaging, I'll call it endearing style of sketches. And these sketches he would put in the Mishnah in order to remember or to illustrate the different things. Some Masechtot are more blessed with needs for visuals. Example is Masechet Kelim. He has 340 pictures, little pictures, miniature pictures in Masechet Kelim. In all those over 90, Irving only had 10. I don't know why. I guess it was easy for him. He did that. And all it is in a Mishnah, which is full. The text it covers most of the page, but he found the space to put it there. And when I was approached by his parents, when he was in the army, and then he finished the army, and he came back for Miluim, and then he came back for the war in the 7th of October. He was by his parents, and then he went down south, and they had an elite unit, and they called Maglan. And there they were in Aza and doing different things that they do. And one mission they had was to rescue bodies of hostages. I'll go back actually 2 weeks before. There were hostages that were set free, and they were very happy, and they were waiting, I guess maybe to help them or to guard them. And waiting for them, they took out a flag, and Eyal and his friend Gal Eisenkot, the son of the Ramatkal, Gadi Eisenkot, were dear, dear friends. They were like iron twins, they called them, like they're together. They took out a flag, and it's a beautiful picture. Uh, and they held it up, and a picture was taken of them on the sands of Gaza. 2 weeks later, they were both killed at the same time by a bomb, a device. And a while afterwards, his father-in-law sort of like was like, where is that Mishnayos that he was learning? What is that? And he had a look inside, and he gave it to some rabbanim. They said, "Oh wow, it's very interesting, and it's well written, and it is hard to see everything." But and from there, the they got the idea. They approached people. They knew people from the National Hebrew Library, Dr. Ezra Shwat. He looked at it, and he was very impressed. And they decided to donate the book to the library, and the library did scans at a very, very high level scans of the book. And in order to get permission to put the scans online, they needed to get my permission because it's my book that his notes were inside. So I get this letter and from this email from them, and they say, well, and I talked to him on the phone. He said, well, he was married for a year. He didn't have a child. And so this, besides his good deeds, is the most precious thing we have from him. Will you allow us to put it online, the scans? And so I cried. I said, of course. And I came to meet the family. They were there for the celebration. It was a very nice ceremony in the National Library. And I met them. I spoke, and then I got a chance to look at the book, and I perused the scans, and we got the idea to put out a sample booklet. His father-in-law was very much in favor of it. So I, just out of love, not because I'm lacking any other things that I'm doing, if we get to that, be interesting. I just said I have to do it. Just like I said with Mishnah's Dur, I have to do it. So we put out 3 Masechta Rosh Hashanah Yom HaSukkah, and the reaction was very good. There were thousands of copies that were snapped up by people. So I decided to do the whole Shas, which we put out in the end another booklet on the way. And I got a whole team of editors, typist editors, graphic artists, about 15 people to work on it. Myself, after training people, I became more the head of the pyramid. One of my Talmidim, Meir Gershuni, he's an editor already as profession, but he took this upon himself to be chief editor. And Baruch Hashem, it's been a very hectic year. Approximately that we're working on it very hard. And I even made a public campaign to raise money for it. I'm not coming out with that much profit. I mean, certainly not for myself personally, but even for the nonprofit that I have. It's a lot of work. And right now, actually, these very few hours, I'll get off the phone, I'll get off the podcast with you, and I'm going to be finishing up the last emendations to send it to the printer this week. So it's been a lot. I've been helped by his father, and we have a great graphic artist, we have Yogav Barda, who painstakingly took them out, scanned them, made them clearer, and to put them in that it shows it's like hand done. So it's really remarkable this connection between, as I said before, this discussion between the Mishnah as it is and him. Now his writing is at a very high level. I will say a very high level of Hebrew. It's very terse and to the point. Most people make the mistake when they want to take notes that they write exactly what is written. So they'll copy it over, and I can see it immediately because they write too much. He rephrased it. He wrote it better, and he used modern Hebrew where not necessarily the lashon of Chazal on purpose in order to make it clear for him. Like I bring these examples. He wrote like there's a behemoth mea that you wanted to get clean because it's important for you that it should be clean, so the water is then b'chiyutan, it's in machshirin. So he gave an example, chayat machmad, a pet. It's not in the Meforshim. Or this thing that the Arabs wear, gumadim shel aravim in Kalim. So it's called a chamtzavar. It's like this thing that you wear around the neck in Israel. It's not like a scarf. It's a thing you wear around the neck. So he used these things and he did the pictures in a way that got the gist of it without going into big, big productions. And he placed the words in the right place so that they worked with the words of the Mishnah. And as we edited it, because we decided to make it a big book, a very big book, as big as the Gemara, instead of the piece. So we have more room between the lines, and we put the words exactly where they should be. So this, I'd say, accelerates the ability to understand and sharpens the understanding where the pshat is with the word. So it really is, as I say, a dance between the Mishnah and the learner itself. And my idea is that Mishnah's Eyal will be an example for everybody how to do it, either to remind themselves of what they learned or to start writing themselves, hopefully, on a blank Mishnah Sedura. And I've given out with this nonprofit, I've given out hundreds of books already to Talmidim of Yeshivot who accepted on themselves to learn a Seder, the Zecher of Eyal, and write in their book like he did, but they're doing what they need to learn. So I really want to make this a way of learning that becomes more popular, which obviously many people do things like this in general, but that it should become a goal for people that learn, not just to read the Mishnah and we did the Mishnah Yomi, or whatever, but we take notes. I would even say, shout out to those of us who learn Daf Yomi, that this posture of sitting back and having the book on the side of the table on people's stomachs and looking at the Magid Shir, hopefully looking in the Gemara, not just in the English translation, whatever, but looking in the Gemara, should be changed. And I think people should come to Shir with a pencil and they should take notes and they should take it seriously and they go over their notes and prepare beforehand and be ready to ask questions. And I know it's not so easy, but it will first of all keep everybody awake. Second of all, it'll keep them focused on what the Maggid Shir is saying. What was that word? What was that word? And not just say it's in the English. And lo and behold, what's going to happen? You will start seeing you'll need less and less English because you're writing in the vocabulary and you'll master it yourself. And that's what we want. We want you to make the Torah your own.
It's really amazing how you think about it. So he went into Gaza. He was trying to rescue take out the body of a hostage, and he was killed, unfortunately. And they discovered this Mishnayos, which I'll link to you can see the scans at the National Library, and then also I'll link to, of course, to purchase the whole Mishnat Eyal, but also the sample that you put out, a sample, and just like the little comments. And what's so fascinating, as you said, is you didn't, sometimes you see when, think of a Mosar of Kok, a Machon Yerushalayim, Sefer, where they have a footnote and you put on the bottom, the note. That's not what you did here, because you really wanted to create Mishnat Eyal to look like Mishnah Sedura. So you still have it, the Mishnah Sedura, as we kind of explained, it's like a song. It runs down the entire page, and then you left in line, and it's like in that script, it's like a digitized version of a handwriting, his comment, whether it's on top of the word, on the side of the word. I think there's a video where you show how your graphic designer shows how he created it, which is fascinating just for those book geeks that are looking at this, just to see how the creation of the product, just to see that. And you can kind of get a sense, you gave some examples of his commentary, but perhaps you can give more to say, like, what kind of commentary, what kind of comments, what are we looking at for someone interested in checking this out? I mean, just to give an example where he has, like, so there's just little things where you have Masechta Megillah, you have the second parak where he says, Curse Megillah Mafrei Liyatz. If you read a Megillah backwards, it's not good. Kara al peh, kara targum, bichaloshin, and right on top of the word bichaloshin, Eyal wrote ve'ena mevin. If you read it in any language, you don't understand it. Not if you understand this. He adds in, so he's trying to give you to explain the Mishnah there. And avokarina soloyazes balaz, you could read it to someone who, in a different language. And he added, mi Megillah haksuva ba'isalashin. We're talking about when the Megillah was written in that language. That's what he's referring to. So all these little kind of small little comments. But if you could, what type of comments is he trying to explain? Like you said, also the examples that you gave, he was trying to give like examples of daily things that, himself or the reader would understand. Or sometimes is he adding pshat? Is he saying halacha? Like what generally are the comments that you found going through Shas that he was trying to add into his Mishnah?
So first, I'd like to add that I just brought into print what he did. He didn't write all his notes on the bottom, and I just put it inside. That's the way he wrote it. It's a very messy, call it alive book that you can see a person used it. It wasn't just like, you see a book with like a little teardrops on it, from the it was used. It was used, it was kept in a good shape, but it was also heavily taped and retaped and things like that. You talked about the handwriting. I want to mention something which is really special, and I think that it might become more popular, but it's very special for this thing, is that the font that we use for his notes is a font that was created from his handwriting. I was on the way to meet with my graphic artist, who's a Talmid Chacham, and he learns Mishnahs all the time, Rabbi Yoga. And then I get a message from Eyal's father. Look, we just got this nonprofit called Ot Chaim created this font in the manner of Eyal's font. I'm looking at it, and I'd already arranged pages. We'd already typed up things and gotten ready. And then I pressed a button where the downloaded font now applied itself to the writing of Eyal that I had copied and put into a page, which I was mocking up to show the graphic artist. And I see all of a sudden his handwriting, which I knew from the scans. I just started shivering, like, we just received from him a sign of life. Ot Chaim. So this they've done for about 50, 60 people already. And this is one that's been used. I mean, the notes here is thousands. It's tens of thousands of different notes. It's very well used. So by putting it inside, we have different levels of learning. You mentioned halacha. I'll just say that to the beginning. He wrote, not all the time, but he wrote, according to the Meforshim, usually with Kahati or the Bartanura, halacha, hey, chupchik, aleph, hey, ain halacha. So if you could have a Tana, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Afila Echad B'Shtei Yadav in Sukkah, Rabbi Yudah say Kabeta, so Rabbi Yudah Kabeta, that's halacha, hey. Rabbi Yossi Afila Echad B'Shtei Yadav is a hey. But you'll have Aleph hey, where his halacha is not like this one, okay? So that, obviously, we're not going to be posting halacha from that, but that gives a consciousness to the reader to pay attention to that. And in fact, at Chata'ayim Maskirayom, Chata'ayim Lishon Ronas, we're getting back to the Kavanaki. Anybody that goes into the Kavanaki's Akdama can see something which I didn't print. He says in a rhyme, he talks here about Chai Prakim. Here, Katana Kamut Asher Kamo Lo Haya. It's very terse and like nothing ever was. V'Rava Eichut. It's very, very high quality. Nimukot. The reason is with it. And once you can understand, v'yadayim etzba halacha kaman asya. And the hands, fingers, like the old books, like the Magen Avram, have a hand. It shows who the halacha is like. So I'm saying now publicly, the Kavanaki had hands showing where the halacha is. And when I put out the book and I transferred it from the old print into the new, I purposely did not do that. And the reason was I was very young. I wasn't even 30. And I did it all in 1 year with teaching and with doing Nikud. And it was a big project, and I never put it in afterwards. So I was scared to take responsibility for halacha. I could have done things. I could have gotten big Talmidei Chachamim to help me, but I was just starting out. So I'm very glad that he did this and that other people can then use this. And obviously, we're not be posek halacha, but it's something important for someone learning Mishnah. In fact, I have a friend, Rabbi Levi, who's coming out with a set of Mishnayos, which he goes into the halacha, the ma'aseh on each Mishnah in a very concise way. Halachata Mishnah. And Rav Neventhal has edited the whole book. So it's a very high level book coming out. And halacha on the Mishnah. So he wrote different things. He wrote the Pshat. He wrote Okimtot. He didn't go into everything that he knew. He didn't write. So it can't be the only mefarish that you have. You need to have something else, or you need to have learned previously. One thing he did do sometimes, for example, especially he connected with Gemaras, especially Gemaras that he knew. So I'll give you a nice example. In Masechet Sukkah, it says, so he writes here about 9 words. He writes Kol ha'ezrach slash halacha. Of course they're pater, but it says just like Pesach they're chayiv in matzah because of chametz they should be chayiv in sukkah. True, he writes because a man's in the chayiv in sukkah he needs his wife. Oh, we have a havamid mecha. So we see kol ha'ezrach and not women. So in 9 words, he's misaking the whole mahalach of the Gemara. You could do it longer, but I don't think you could do it much shorter.
It's just really amazing for those to see. And again, I'll link it to it and I'll put a picture of it. And you mentioned like it's a live book, but it really looks like that. You didn't have to use the handwriting and that font that you got and put it in line. So it's in line wherever it is. Sometimes you have his arrows, sometimes you put it on top. So it's not just a photocopy. It's the Mishnah Sidura with the Kavanaki and then, this digitized font of his and you move things around. So it's not just simply a photocopy. It's very cool to see, but it actually, you can see his comments kind of in that handwriting digitized font in the proper locations of exactly where he wrote it. Because you mentioned many listeners are familiar with.
Wrote it. He didn't have space, so sometimes he could write it on the side, and we put it more where
you
it
moved
should
it over.
be.
Yeah,
I want to say something else also.
Go ahead.
I was thinking about it. There's a diagram that he put. It's an Olot, and he did a certain measurement, and he put a measurement. And this is sort of behind the scenes, the podcast behind the scenes. So he put a measurement, and you can see it in Olos, Perkubet, and it's a diagonal of a square that should be tefach al tefach, and he put it there square root of 2.56. So I understand the measurement. The measurement is 1.6, which is 1 3/5. That's the diagonal. But why did he write it as a square root? We are right now on the race to print the book by Erev Chanukah, okay? I spent over half an hour. The head editor spent about that much time and sat with a math teacher to try to figure out why. At the end, and we have many other things to do. We have to finish the book. This is the way we treated what he wrote. He didn't make any mistake. Stam. If there's anything I didn't know, I didn't let any editor say, no, just write the regular page. No, at least understand why he said it. I'm like, what's going on? Is he a Rishon? He's but he was like covered of a kadosh and a brilliant person, even though, maybe because he was so unav, but to say, in the end, I decided to write 1.6, and anybody learning the Meforshim will understand it. Even though he didn't write 1 3/5, it's fine. But I want to say that we did it with the utmost responsibility, and we talked about it at the staff together that nevarer mikol shel tzaddik, and he was ra'ui for that, and not everybody's ra'ui for that. He wrote most of it when he was 18 to 20.
It's a really amazing project and really cool as well, just to see the actual finished work. So who would you say that Mishnat Eyal is for?
I would say it's for, obviously, everybody. Someone that has experience in learning Mishnayos, and I would say there'll be a difference between if you're what they call it, a regular, or there's some people that after they know Kachim. Between Moed and Kachim and Taros and this, where you're familiar, you'll see that you understand exactly what he's saying. And you won't be surprised that he skips over certain parts which he doesn't say anything about because you remember the parish yourself. So something that you know and you want to chazer, but you never had the time, you'll find yourself delighted by going over what he wrote. Someone that's starting out, that wants to learn and wants to learn how to annotate his own Mishnah, I would very much suggest taking out your everything. Take out your whole battery of things. You should have a blank Mishnah Sidura. You should have Mishnat Eyal. And if you need it, okay. For now, take out your Reisman or your Steinsaltz or whatever you like or whatever. It could be Einal Perushim. That's fine. And read the Mishnah a few times, 4 times, parak by parak, and try to get a feeling. Am I familiar with this? Is there something clear? Do I know this is somewhere? This is totally understandable. Oh, here's a pasuk. And then start reading the Mishnah again in order to try to understand, and take from Mishnat Eyal and see if you understand it. If you do, write it in. If you speak English, write it in English. It'll be harder. English is a longer language. If you need, learn other Meforshim. but you will find it so engaging. You will find it something that will make your learning very interactive. It will make it something that you will remember much better. You will understand much better because you are involved with it, creating the perush that you will want to review later. So do it in pencil, a sharp pencil with an eraser, something that you would like to see again and not say I can't read it. It's not clear enough. It's for someone that really wants to study or that his study wants to do chazara. But it's not for someone who's just wants to get a quick read over and he doesn't know anything about it.
You mentioned before Mishnah Dura has a bunch of different iterations. You have it in one big volume. I have a 6-volume edition. There's a 3-volume. There's paperbacks. What's the plan to publish Mishnat Eyal, at least in the beginning?
The beginning and probably mostly the end. It's a small hand-sized version that he wrote it. You can look at it. You will have to zoom in on the site of the National Library to see anything. And it would be impossible. If someone would say, you know what, I'm going to take all the digitized scans and I'm going to print them. Even if you would print them at a larger size, it would be very hard to read. It would be hard. So I went immediately to the large size, in fact, right now it's as big as a Gemara. The Mishnah, which we're putting out, is it's going to be about 13 centimeters high. So Gemara. It's going to be a boxed version. And I think that's the way it's going to stay. I might make it into 2 volumes maybe, but I don't think that it's going to be too readable in a smaller version. I just had a mamish a few hours back, had this idea to put it out maybe as a pamphlet for pamphlets, but this way, sort of like that one page would be a pamphlet to its length. You have to turn that page sideways. But we did some pamphlets, and could be that Seder Moed or Shabbos, different Shabbos, different things that people like to learn once in a while are more popular, could be done as thinner pamphlets. But it won't be a smaller size, not substantially. It won't be easy to read.
So this podcast is going to come out, Mitzvah Shem, for Eyal's yard site. So hopefully it'll be available as you're now in the crunch trying to get it done. How can one purchase it, whether they're in Israel or if they're located in America? How's it going to be available for purchase?
Well, my distributor is Abramovich, and you can get any of his books in Orach Chaim if you want, or from him directly, or through my website. And in America, our distributor is Yaakov Levitt, his son, Benjamin, in Sefer. Yaakov was my first distributor in America, and I remember him well. But I don't know. I think that in the beginning, I'm going to be sending it out just to yeshivot and schools and shuls. That's what I was thinking, because the tzibur donated money, and I want to give it out first. And then people that still want it can sign up, and then we'll make another edition. I think the first thing should be for the tzibur. What do you think?
So I'm sure there's going to be those interested in purchasing it, because it's really, again, I'm really just the whole concept of it, and from his notes and what he was able to accomplish by 28 years old while doing other things, that he was able to do this.
It was mostly written when he was younger. It was mostly written when he was 18 to 20.
Even more amazing in some ways.
Someone that knows him said he used to do 6 prakim a night. I think that's when he learned it during the day. And Chazara, he would do 6 prakim a night and write in. As I said, he wanted to get to high prakim, and he would do everything that they learned till now. They would chazer every month. I want to say one more thing. I pointed out in the Akdama that unfortunately there are thousands of people that have been killed in this war, just in this war, and maybe 1,000 soldiers. And not everybody, because of age and because of level of chachma, had a inheritance to pass over to the tzibur in this manner. Many people have done many, many things which are wonderful and beautiful. I'm just saying more and more. Eyal left a spiritual inheritance of the Mishnah at a level which even learned people can benefit from, and anyone who wants to learn the Mishnah can benefit from. And we say we want to learn Shas, we want to learn Mishnayos in memory of the Chayalim, in memory of the people that were killed. Here we have a Shidduch Tzibur, we have the Mishnah of a soldier himself that we can learn in memory of all the soldiers. I want to make also very, very wonderful thing that the community of Baltimore just very quickly got together, and a group of people from there sponsored Seder Nezikin of Mishnat Eyal in memory of Rabbi Hauer, because he was connected with Eli. He connected with Torah Eretz Yisrael. By the way, Eretz Yisrael is gematria Mishnat Eyal. It was sweet fruit of the Torah learned in Eretz Yisrael. He was connected to that yeshiva, and the people in Baltimore wanted to honor Rabbi Hauer's connection to Israel and to honor his memory through this.
Very special. So I'll link in the show notes to Mishnah Sdura, and if it's available, it'll be available for purchase there. And if it's available for purchase, I'll link where it's available for those interested in purchasing.
Or to sign up to get on the waiting list.
And that'll be on your website? Where can they sign up?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'll put that link in the show notes for those interested and on the WhatsApp chat as well. And thank you, Rabbi Dordek, for joining me to discuss Mishnah Sdura and Mishnat Eyal.
Okay, Mizrat Hashem. Learn the Mishnah and be a more complete Jew.
Yeah, that should be a schus for Elias and Neshama of Eyal.
Sort of end of this story, sort of coming back in a circle, is I didn't go to MIT. However, my love of technology and the way my mind worked kept me interested in technology. And besides developing certain things for the yeshiva to use in Mitzvah Yericho, I said, I love Mishnah. Why can't technology help me learn Mishnah and help me learn Mishnah Baal Peh? What's the hardest thing to find when you're learning Mishnah Baal Peh is someone to test you. So the simple idea is you speak, the computer listens and gives you feedback as to whether you said it correctly. I made a startup. I was in various accelerators here in Jerusalem, including Mass Challenge. And I'm developing using AI to take what the reader, call it a student, reads and to give feedback on the accuracy of the reading, the fluency, and even Baal Peh. And this is still in its beginning, and we're looking for development partners. And one thing that was very nice was, on my last trip to Chicago, I went to my alma mater, Hillel Torah, ICJA, and I'm starting their pilots to use it. So 45 years later, from when Mr. Richardson in MIT said that if you have something important to do it, and college will take care of itself, I was very proud to come back to my alma maters with a technological tool that represented both my love of technology, but more importantly, my love of Torah and how to help people. Children was a very big difficulty now in helping Americans, day school kids, learn to read fluently and keep their practice up. And eventually it could grow to something worldwide for other cultures. So that's something that makes me very proud that it come full circle to bring this to the Torah community. One other thing connected with my love of technology is I became a partner in the Android app for Kahati. And now in this app, there's all of Mishnah Sdura. I got also spearheaded the effort to bring all of the English Kahati into the app, and also the recording of all of Mishnah Sdura with a professional Hebrew recording, and the recording of the Kahati is now in the app. And now lately, because of the developer couldn't continue with it, I took on the responsibility to take care of and develop this app. It's now called the Kahati Mishnah Sdura app. It's free for download on Android, and soon we'll be developing a new version for Android and for Apple that will be amazing and a lot of ways to learn Mishnah Sdura, Kahati, and other things, both visually and audio.